Welcome back to the Yas Technique for Vector Graphics in Adobe Illustrator. I am Jeff Yas, and I am so glad you've joined me on this journey. You've completed step one, getting started. We went over goals. We learned about vector graphics and Adobe Illustrator, why our brain loves vector graphics for creative projects. And we debunked a few myths, found a few alternatives to Adobe Illustrator, and finally discussed some gear. So we are in good shape now to go a little deeper and actually install the software and learn how to get actually set up to start designing. Let's get into chapter 2. Okay, welcome to chapter 2, getting ready. We're going to install Adobe Illustrator. We're going to get set up in our chairs. We're going to learn how to hold our hands. We're going to learn some shortcuts and get deep into the pen tool. So let's get started right now. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is visit adobe.com, and you're going to click on the Start Free Trial button, and then we'll choose for individuals or for students and teachers, keeping in mind this is just a trial, but if you are considering it long-term, students and teachers is quite a discount. And then from there, it's going to ask you if you want to pay yearly or monthly, offering you a discount if you pay all at once. But remember, this is a 7-day trial. The next step is then to decide if you would like Adobe stock for $30 a month. Certainly not required for this course. A good deal nonetheless. However, that's a personal decision. And for step 3, you'll enter the email address you would like to use for your Adobe account. And then once you've entered in your email address, step 4 is payment, and step 5 will be install. We're not going to show screenshots of those. However, once you have Creative Cloud installed on your computer, it should look like this. And I'm happy to say that you now have all of the Adobe suite installed on your computer, or at least available to you. You can see the full list of apps under all apps and then install them as you need them. But right now we are concerned with Adobe Illustrator. So let's get that installed. I'm going to let you do that on your own. And next step, we will have Adobe Illustrator installed and open on our screens. Great, now that you've installed Adobe Illustrator, you've opened it, and you should be looking at the welcome screen. It says, "Welcome to Illustrator, Jeff." It has some of my previous projects at the bottom, but we are concerned mostly with the New File button, which can be accessed under the File menu or under this blue button. And from there, I would like you to create a new, there's a lot to look at, but I'd like you to focus in on the width and height and the units. So we're going to have 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels. One artboard, no bleed. It's going to be an RGB document with raster effects at high, preview default, and we'll create. Now, before we do any designing, we're going to spend a little time getting ready. So what I mean by that is to get our toolbar and our palettes all set up properly so we feel comfortable and have quick access to the things that we use the most. So right now on the top right-hand part of your screen, you're going to see a workspace icon, and I'd like you to choose Essentials. And I'll pause while you do that. Now under Essentials, if you have opened up, that might shift things around a little bit on your screen. Under Essentials, if you've used Adobe Illustrator before, you might want to choose Reset Essentials just to make sure you're looking at the way it came out of the box, so to speak. So right now, we're going to spend a little time configuring our workspace and making it look the way that we want. So right off the bat, we're going to be working on this right-hand side right now, and you can watch me and then do it yourself. We're going to be removing the comments by dragging this word comments over onto the workspace and clicking on the X. So a lot of these menus are draggable and closable by clicking first on the name and then choosing X. Properties will leave, although we're going to make its own column. So we're going to drag on the word properties and between the workspace and this column of palettes, we can find a little blue bar when we drag it. Once we see that blue bar, the vertical blue bar, we're going to leave properties its own column. We'll have layers in front on the second column and libraries in the background. Those are saved colors and things like that. That's from my own personal work. So let's not get distracted with that. Let's have properties here, layers, and libraries. Now we're going to open up the rest of the palettes that we'll need and create a little jump bar, so to speak. So we'll open up Align, which comes with a few other ones. I'm going to drag Align into a third column. However, once I make that third column, I'm going to choose Collapse to Icons. So that third column becomes just a tiny little icon column, and I'm going to actually even drag that to be more narrow so it just shows the icons. Dragging Pathfinder on top of Align so they're in the same little grouping. Same with Transform. Great, now I've got a little group of 3 icons. Artboards. Actually, appearance is something that's also useful, so let's drag appearance to this bar. I'm just going to go down the list. Artboards, yes. Asset export, no. Attributes, color, yes. In fact, color I'm going to put below layers. So drag it down there until I see a horizontal blue line, and that goes in its own slot. And I'm going to move color guide over here and close it. I don't need color guide for now. And going down the list, gradient, yes. Graphic styles, no, no, yes. Links, actions, no. Do want links though. It tells us where all the images are from that we've placed in our images in our document. We did this. Stroke, yes. This is all based on my own preferences, and that was locked together with transparency, which I also want. So I'll put that there. I'm not really sure why those are together, but so type, yes. Paragraph, yes. Open type, no. I think we did the rest of these. Glyphs I would have open only if you had a second monitor available. It takes up a lot of room. And paragraph styles will drag into the type space, and character styles we will drag into this little type space. And there we have it. So those are the palettes that we want to have open. We've got 2 columns visible. The properties palette I left to the end because this is the sort of all-purpose dynamic palette. It changes. If you have a rectangle open, it tells you information about the rectangle. If you have the type tool, it'll tell you information about what you have, what kind of type you're using. So the properties palette will change based on context. So it's nice to have that open. We've got layers, libraries, color is going to go up here. Gradient, I think I forgot swatches. So we'll go to swatches. Great. And we don't need those 2 swatches here. So properties, layers, libraries are just kind of hidden over here on the side. Color, swatches, and gradient. And the rest we have in our little toolbar here. And now, finally, I want to save this because I don't want to lose all of my changes. So we had chosen essentials, but if we reset essentials, we will lose all of our the changes that we've just made. So let's make a new workspace. I tend to call it the date, and I do this date configuration: year, month, day, and hit OK. And that way, whenever I want, I can come back to 220507, and that'll be this particular configuration for my work. And now let's learn our first shortcut. Hit Command 0 to center ourselves on screen. Whenever I say command, I also mean control for you PC people, but we're going to stick with our Mac shortcuts for now. That's command 0 to center on screen, and this is a great place to get started. All right, now we're going to cover why it's important to have two hands engaged in the process at all times. Of course, for right-handers, your right hand is on the mouse, and for left-handers, your left hand will be on the mouse. But what is the other hand doing? And the other hand really should be touching the keyboard gently. The thumb is gently resting on the command key, and your index finger is gently resting on something around the tab key. And we want to have quick access to the spacebar with the left hand, the command key, the option key, and the shift key. Sometimes control as well. I, of course, sometimes use, instead of the control key on the Mac, I'll be right-clicking for certain subfunctions. But most of the things that we'll be dealing with, you'll need very quick access to the command key. So we cannot be sort of looking for that each and every time. You need to have your thumb near the command key in order to work fast, save yourself some time, your brain some time, which opens up the creativity. And that's what this course is about. We're looking for ways to be creative in Adobe Illustrator. And one of the key ways is to eliminate having to stop your brain flow to rethink of where a button is or what a command is. You need to be able to quickly have your thumb on the command key, add the option, little space bar for your moving yourself around with the hand, holding down command for your item tool. Option will be modify certain tools, like in the pen tool, you'll be able to modify the pen tool using the option. So there's a variety of reasons why you have to have your left hand here, or if you're left-handed, your right hand will be key. I guess in that case, you would probably get a left-handed keyboard so you could hang off the edge, because that's the key. Your left hand or your right hand needs to be hanging off the edge. So that's it. Now we've gone over why it's important to have two hands on the wheel. Onward. Shortcuts. Easy way to access the tools we use the most, saving us a lot of time. And most importantly, mental energy, because we want to keep our eyes on our creative flow, and we don't want to have to each time do a task that could take us out of our zone. So right now, we're going to go over about 10 or so of my most important tools. These are the tools that I find most useful in my work. And I'm just going to basically treat them as a list for you to absorb. This will be available in the downloadable PDF, and this is in the spirit of eliminating distractions. We're always accomplishing that with each of our tasks in this course. And right now we're eliminating distractions by not memorizing the huge long list of Adobe shortcuts, which, as you can see, can get very numerous and hard to follow and hard to digest. There are many, many shortcuts that are available in Adobe Illustrator, and then you can configure your own. This is the master cheat sheet on the Adobe website that I've used, but we're going to keep it simple. We're going to start with 10 or 12 basic shortcuts that we can remember, starting with the pen tool. So real simple. When you hit the P on your keyboard, you will activate the pen tool. When you hit the V on the keyboard, you will be jumping to the selection tool, which is the top black tool, the top arrow. That's something we use quite a bit. And similarly, when you're working in other tools, if you hold down the command key, you will automatically jump to that selection tool. So there's two ways to kind of quickly access that selection tool, which is the very important tool for selecting objects and making changes to them or moving them around. So either holding down the command key when you're in another tool, or just simply hitting the V on the keyboard will get you to the selection tool. Followed by the A shortcut, which gets you to the direct selection tool, and that is something we're going to be using to select individual points rather than an entire object. Holding down space bar will get us into the hand tool. We'll be looking at this more carefully, also the H key. But similarly to the selection tool, no matter where you are, no matter what tool you're using, you can hold down spacebar and jump to the hand tool. To show and hide guides, it's going to be Command semicolon, and for the grid, Command single quotes. For the edit curve, we're going to be holding down the Option key. That probably should be more like the Command and spacebar, like in yellow, because that's something that we can use no matter where we are in the pen tool, is hold down the Option key to edit a particular curve within a larger shape. And as usual, Command C is copy. We probably all know that Command V is paste and Command X is to cut, but Command C, copying, is very important. And X to toggle between fill and stroke. Shift X to switch the stroke or fill color back and forth. And Command Z for a clipping mask. And Command Shift A to deselect an object. We're going to be using all of these in our projects, but I just wanted to put these on screen, take them in all at once, but we will be looking at them individually along the way. And now in the next section, we're going to focus more narrowly on the pen tool, which probably is the most important tool we'll use. So let's hit P and dive right in. Now, looking more carefully at the pen tool, we're going to look at just some of the basic sub shortcuts that we use with the pen tool. So in the toolbar, you can see the top level tool is that pen tool, but we should have a few other options beneath it. And if we don't, we're going to look at those three dots at the bottom of the toolbar and configure our toolbar to have the pen tool, the anchor point tool, and those two add and delete anchor point tools all in one little stack. So once you're done configuring that, using the three dots and getting those tools the way we want them, you should have access to all of these. But you can see they all have shortcuts associated with the keyboard. So Shift C will get you into the anchor point tool. The plus, once you're in the pen tool already, if you hit the plus key, that will be the add anchor point tool, as well as subtract. And now that we've had a bit of an overview of the pen tool, let's get down to earth and see how it really works. Okay, now we're going to head on back to our document, our 1920 by 1080 document. And in layer 1, we're selecting the pen tool, and we're just going to go over some of the basics of the pen tool. In the projects, we're going to get more into the details of the pen tool mechanics, but for right now, I just want to discuss some of the basics. So when you select the pen tool, the first step is to make a single click on your page without dragging or moving around, and then find the place for the second spot on your shape, the second dot on your shape. I'll go down here, let's say. If I hold down Shift, I'll be restrained to 45-degree angles, but for right now, I'm just going to not hold down Shift and click anywhere on the artboard, and that'll make a straight line to a second spot. I'll do a third point here, and then back to the beginning. And you can see that little O happened as I closed my shape. And that is the simple way to make a shape in Adobe Illustrator. You see in your toolbar, you have foreground, which is the fill, and the stroke, which is the line around, neither of which are really visible right now. So let's just click on that fill and adjust the color so it's not white. I'll just drag my little slider in my color bar, and I'm going to click on the stroke and make that none. And choose my selection tool to click on my object and move it around. Once again, the pen tool, one click, another click. This time we'll make a diamond. We'll just have an impromptu kind of diamond, a fourth click, and then when I see the little O, I know I'm closing my shape. And this is taken on the attributes of the last shape I made. Maybe I'll make this blue by clicking on the foreground to bring that to the front, and adjusting the color, holding down V for my selection tool and moving this around, and then deleting it. So take a few minutes, you can pause the video and make a few shapes using just straight lines, and then we'll come back and talk about just how to make some curves, and then we'll move on. Instead of just single clicks like this, where we don't click and drag, the mechanics are actually more about clicking and dragging. So instead of clicking and moving on, we're going to click and not let go with our mouse and pull as we make the second point. Go to the next step and pull to adjust the curve, and it's gonna looking like a guitar pick almost. I'm gonna Apple Z, kind of just pull myself around here, and then finally reach the end point. And then using my selection tool to move the object. Now, then I'll go back to the pen tool, holding down the Option key to adjust a single point, and I'll pull on that point in one of the two directions that works. I'll hover over an undesirable point that I might not want. I'm going to hit Command plus to zoom in. Oh, there's no point. I see. So there's a handle there. So again, I'll hold down the Option key to adjust a particular handle, like this. Command Z to undo. Hold down the A key to the direct selection tool, and I will click on just one of the points. Now I can click on individual points because I selected A. Command minus to zoom out. Holding down the V, jumping to the item tool. Back to P for P. Holding down the command momentarily to reselect my item. And then I'm going to hold down A to click on just this one point, pull it out a little bit, and I've got a little impromptu guitar pick. I'm going to delete that. Let's try to make a circle together. So one single click, right hand side of the page, I'll go up to the top of the circle. I'm going to hold down Shift for a right angle. I'm going to pull gently to the left. It kind of guides me to the next spot. I'm going to hold down Shift. This time I'm going to go down here, hold down Shift and pull to the right. And I don't really have to do much other than just click O, click on the last point to connect it, and then hit V to jump to my selection tool, and I can select it and change its attributes. So now I have a curved object. And just for fun, we can do something very free form with the pen tool by just, first time we click, it's just a single click, but then pulling ourselves and not doing extreme clicking and drags, but just a gentle shapes by pulling on the edges of these handles that get created each time we make a point. We'll talk more about the handles in a moment, but I just want to give you a sense of the general use of this pen tool. So then I could deselect that, maybe make a new shape that conforms to the outer parts of that first shape. Each time, not an extreme pull on these handles, but just a gentle one, because what happens when you do an extreme pull is something like this, Command Z. I'm just going to keep on pulling myself around, and you might get to a point like that. I'm going to zoom in by Command plus, hold down the space bar to hand pull myself around, and then I'm going to use the A to adjust this particular curve with the direct selection tool. I think something more like that would be good. I'm going to zoom out by holding Command Option, space bar Command Option, which is zoom out. Just the space bar to move myself around. and adjust my shapes. And so that's the basic use of the pen tool. We hit P, we can either do geometric shapes using straight lines. We can also do curved shapes using the Bezier curve function by pulling on these handles. And we can do a combined shape that has geometric qualities, but also some freeform curves as well. So that's a basic overview of the pen tool. And just as a reminder, the reason we are focused so much on the pen tool is because it is the core tool in the Yas Technique for vector graphics in Adobe Illustrator. It's all about eliminating distractions to maximize creativity. And if I had one tool at my disposal, it would be the pen tool. So in terms of a minimalist approach and an easy way into the Adobe Illustrator world, we're going to focus on the pen tool. And in our 3 projects, which are coming up, we are going to be using the pen tool in action and start to really repeat some of the basic mechanics of it so they become more intuitive. Thank you and congratulations. You have now completed lesson 2, Getting Ready. You've installed Adobe Illustrator. You've learned about setting up your workspace for success, the importance of having 2 hands engaged at all times. We've gone over some core shortcuts and been introduced to the pen tool. We know we're going to be using that more in future projects and throughout our experience with Adobe Illustrator. Let's hit into chapter 3. We're going to set up a template much like the one we just did, except we're going to get a little more granular, talk in more detail about pixel size. We'll set up those tools and palettes once again, but we're also going to use guides and grids to set up our template and discuss how to save and export our files for various uses. So very excited to head into lesson 3. Let's go.